Hey there, everyone. Welcome to Speak Now Pro Wrestling. It is Friday night, February 7th. It's your girl, Denise Salcedo, reunited once again with Robin Lundberg to chat some WWE Smackdown. Before we get into Smackdown, of course, we do have some breaking news in regards to some WWE releases and some contracts not being renewed, which we will get to in just a moment. But first and foremost, Robin, how are you? And are you riding on a high after all of Kendrick Lamar's Grammy wins?
No, it was a fun weekend last weekend, right? Like you had the Royal Rumble, which left me on a high. Then there was the Luka Doncic trade Saturday night, which I'm going to tie into what we're about to discuss in a minute. But that was like, what? For real? And then Sunday morning, there was the Indiana Fever made a big signing. And of course, I cover that. And then Sunday night was the Grammys. And I really like the Grammys because it's like a concert. Like it's like some of these other award shows, I don't really like. If I didn't watch these Oscar movies, I don't care. Like at least in this case, I don't even have to have listened to the album. I can hear a performance. Like I went and found the song that Billie Eilish performed because I was like, oh, I dig this, and I went and listened to that after the fact. And then of course, Kate out winning and your girl Taylor Swift, she always seems to have a good time at the Grammys as well. And now I'm hyped for the Kendrick Lamar concert this weekend, also known as the Super Bowl.
I know. Oh my God, hearing you run down everything that just happened. That reminds me when I was in Indiana, I was in the arena and I seen all of the Indiana Fever like merchandise. And I felt so stupid because I was walking and I really wasn't thinking about it. And then I turned and I looked and I was like, oh yeah, mom, this is where they play. And it was just like I had such a like slow moment, and instantly I thought about you, and I'm like, oh, I wish I could tell Robin, but I'm like, she already knows, whatever, we'll be fine. But yeah, hearing you run down all of this stuff, there really is a lot going on. I obviously can't wait for the Super Bowl. I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing how Kendrick presents his halftime performances. We know it's always very, the performances at the Super Bowl are very splashy and things like that. So I'm excited. It's gonna be a good time.
Well, usually, I mean, the halftime performance is actually more watched than the game. Generally, like I think it's 128 million viewers, or 130 million viewers for the halftime last year. Because the Super Bowl is like its own thing. You know, I always say the end of the NFL season in reality is kind of the conference championship games. Because once that happens, the Super Bowl becomes this like Americana pop culture commercials, parties, concerts that for the people that weren't there the whole time, and for the football fans that were there the whole time, it's a little bit of a different feel and event.
Yeah, they only care if their team is in it. If not, it's like, oh man, my team didn't make it. Boo. But yeah, I'm not surprised by that because it's like, okay, like let's say you're not a football fan, but you're like, damn, I want to see Kendrick or whoever it is that's performing every year. So yeah, I can see that stat definitely being true. All right. With that being said, let's go ahead and get into the wrestling talk of the day. I really hate to start the show this way, but of course we got to get into the breaking news of today. And during this show, during SmackDown, Sean Ross Sapp of Fightful was sharing on his Twitter some of the breaking news regarding some of the contracts that weren't renewed from WWE and some people who were just released. So either way, the names that are currently are now gone from the company include Blair Davenport, AOP, Paul Ellering, Cedric Alexander, and Sonya Deville. I don't think I missed anybody. Did I miss anybody? So already though, those are a couple of names that Robin, part of me is really not surprised, unfortunately, because, for example, with Sonya, I kind of felt like the group with PFC, they weren't really like things weren't really moving along with that group. Unfortunately, I think what really hurt them was the name. I think the group itself could have been very freaking cool because you had all of these, very, very like tough women part of this stable and all of these girls that can go like Shayna, Zoe, and Sonya, they can all go. And so I was very bummed out that the group was given such a crappy name because that took everybody's like interest away from that. Blair Davenport, she had been called up to the main roster. Unfortunately, we didn't get to see too much from her. So she didn't really get, I would say, a fair opportunity to really show what she can do on the show, which is definitely unfortunate. AOP and Paul Ellering, part of the Final Testament. We all know that group was really just not, they just weren't succeeding on the main roster. They could have probably found something else for them to do, but they just didn't. Cedric Alexander, he was over on NXT, and as of late, he was just going out there. He was having his matches. I was actually surprised to see him be released, considering that the men's division on NXT is very, very slim. So, yeah, it's very unfortunate, man. Seeing these names, anytime anybody loses their job, it definitely sucks. But at the same time, I'm kind of not surprised so far with any of the names, which is unfortunate, of course.
Look, yeah, let me preface this by saying, of course it sucks. And of course my heart goes out to them. Look, I've been through it. I've been through it where the names came out publicly in the same sort of fashion, right? Other times I've shared it myself, but I've been through when I lost my job at ESPN in 2017, it was part of a mass layoff where it was all reported out, like, and so has been released, so I've been through it where it's put in the paper and all that. So it only amplifies that feeling that you're feeling yourself. Now, the bright side of that is some of these folks will go on to have success elsewhere or back in the WWE in the future. That's inevitable. We've seen it before. To your point, though, I'm generally not surprised by these things because generally the releases are coming. They're not a Luka Doncic level surprise where it's like,
Right,
I
right.
can't believe this has happened. They're not even a Jey Uso winning the Royal Rumble surprise where you're like, wow, Jey Uso won. Generally, these things are players who were bit players, who were kind of rudderless, who hadn't found it. And it just felt like they were, you wouldn't have missed them necessarily if you didn't hear that they were released. And that sounds cold. I don't mean that to anybody personally. I'm just talking about a consumer of the product and the show. Like if you hadn't told me that news and they just didn't appear for a while, I don't know if I would have missed them. And that in itself speaks to the release. I think the one that surprised me the most was probably Sonya Deville, simply because she was just in the Rumble, right? And she's probably the biggest name of the bunch. Maybe had reached the highest level of notoriety, but none of them completely shocked me. And we'll see which of that group winds up finding whatever it is they have within them to succeed somewhere else or back in WWE in the future.
Yeah, I think Sonya was also a surprising one too, especially because she had kind of been through a lot in the last couple of years. I was mentioning on the watch along how she did take a time away because she had gone through with something very terrifying where a fan tried to kidnap her. And I mean, I remember her being gone for a long time following that because I can imagine that's very traumatizing and terrifying. And she came back. I don't remember if she got injured or not. She did actually. Remember when she was with Chelsea? That was right. Then she had an injury, and so then she was gone after that for that injury, and then she came back, and then that's finally when they put the group together with PFC, and then it just didn't end up working out. So of course now, I don't know if the group is gonna stay together, and maybe Zoe and Shayna will be a tag team, possibly. I don't know. The other person that you gotta wonder how things are gonna work out for them now that these people are gone is Karrion Kross. It hasn't been too hot for Karrion Kross on the show, and now losing pretty much his entire group, everybody but Scarlett. What does this look like for Karrion Kross? What can be done?
I think it might be a good thing for him. I mean, I feel like he's gotten a little bit more juice in recent weeks than he has in most of his WWE tenure. I mean, since he came up, I feel like the biggest impact he made was that debut. I think it was on a SmackDown. Did he come out and put the timer or whatever it is, or the
Oh yes,
hand
that
timer?
little
Uh,
TikTok thing he was doing.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, on the ring apron. I believe he did that in a main event match on a SmackDown. And people are like, oh, there's Karrion Kross. In fact, I think I did bust it open the next day, and we talked about that. That it was like the lead of the show. So since then, he hasn't. I've seen him do really well in interviews and stuff outside of the ring, but I've noticed them integrating him in pieces of what's going on. Like didn't he have the backstage promo with Sami Zayn a couple weeks ago in the midst of what's going on? So maybe, I mean, it can't be the worst thing for him because I don't know what his contract status was, and maybe it was just a function of his contract status, but he's not included in those names. So that means he could have future plans. And as you said with the other faction, it didn't exactly hit. So when something is not working, it's better to get out of it sooner rather than later.
Right. So, I mean, of course, it sucks, and we'll see what ends up happening with that. But that is the latest. Of course, I hate to kick off the show in such a bumming kind of a way, but of course, I'll be keeping an eye out on social media in case any more other names drop or are revealed here. Hopefully not. Hopefully, that's about the extent of that. But I will be keeping an eye out on that. Let's go ahead and get into some super chats, though. We got Kevin Zwicker, by the way, who says, I love you, Solo. We'll get into Solo Sikoa in just a moment. The Moneymaker Chris says, hey, Denise and Robin, we are getting a double dose of WWE in DC next week, SmackDown and Vengeance Day. I'll be at both shows. Can't wait. Dude, I love when that happens, when it's in your hometown. You get to watch multiple shows. There's nothing better than that. So I hope you enjoy yourself, Chris, and I hope you have a good time at both of the shows. And let me know how they go. Send me tag me in some pictures or something. I hope you have a good time. All right, everyone. So let's get to it. Because we did get a super chat already on this, I guess we'll start there. And that was Kevin Zwicker who had said, I love you, Solo. So let's start with Solo Sikoa's return. There's not too much to really give off on this, but basically we had this tag team match that was made at the top of the show between Tama Tonga and Jacob Fatu versus Jey Uso and Cody Rhodes. And you're probably wondering, wait, Jey Uso, Cody Rhodes, how did this happen? Well, Jey Uso had appeared on SmackDown to kind of talk to Cody Rhodes. Obviously having won the Royal Rumble, he does have that possibility of having a match with Cody Rhodes. Doesn't seem like that's going to happen. They seem to be on, each other's side, seem to be friends. So it doesn't seem like that's going to happen. And I think we all kind of knew it wasn't. But they found themselves in a tag team match here tonight with Tama Tonga and Solo Sikoa. After Cody Rhodes did the crossroads on Tama Tonga, pinned him 1, 2, 3, Solo Sikoa came from behind and hit Cody Rhodes with the Samoan spike, laying him out, and we closed out the show with Solo Sikoa. We hadn't seen Solo in a minute. He'd sort of been not the same Robin after the events that unfolded with him and Roman Reigns. It just wasn't Solo Sikoa just wasn't the same guy the last couple of weeks.
Well, he didn't say anything. And then he disappeared, right? Yeah, he came out and which made you wonder, is there friction in the bloodline and what have you? I'll say two things for this bit at the end. One, I wasn't expecting it. It caught me by surprise. Maybe it shouldn't have, because it was bloodline related and bloodline, shenanigans have been going on for a long, long time. So maybe I shouldn't have been caught by surprise, but I did not expect Solo Sikoa's appearance. And number two, I think it's interesting because maybe we wrote him off a little quick, right? Like he lost that big match to Roman Reigns, and it's like, okay, what's next for Solo Sikoa? Is he just going to kind of drift away or play a side role or something like that? To immediately come back and attack Cody Rhodes gives some sort of indication that he's going to be a part of some of the major storylines and they continue to view him as a big time player. So those were my two takeaways. One, cool surprise at the end because I wasn't expecting it. And two, maybe they, don't want to just take what they did with Solo Sikoa since last WrestleMania and throw it in the garbage because he lost on the Netflix debut.
See, I feel like I had totally different reactions. One, I was expecting Solo to appear because I thought to myself, okay, if this is just a clear victory for Cody and Jey, does this really go anywhere, right? Not so much, right? And so I thought, okay, maybe this is the place where Solo Sikoa does return, especially because at the top of the show, when we had Jacob Fatu mention how Cody took the title away from his family and his family needs it back, I started to think, is Jacob Fatu referring to himself or is he referring to Solo Sikoa? That was never, ever really explained here. I think people were probably just assuming. However you took that, you were assuming whether he was speaking for himself or speaking for Solo or whatever, right? We definitely know he wasn't speaking for Jey Uso because he told Jey Uso he wasn't shit, basically. And so, but the whole time that I was watching that, Robin, I was thinking to myself, like, okay, we're probably going to see Solo Sikoa today because as of right now, who is the new bloodline still a thing? I mean they have to be, right, because it's in their bloodline, but are they still gonna push it as much? Where's Solo Sikoa? It felt like tonight was definitely the night where you needed some answers, and so he's back now. My second reaction to that was, oh no, we're going back to Solo Sikoa and Cody Rhodes.
Mm-mm.
I don't want to go back to that. We've already seen that, and I feel like we've already seen everything we need to see from it. So him coming out and Samoan spiking Cody, of course, we're gonna go and circle back to that because Cody isn't gonna take that lane down. I'm not excited about that. I was kind of excited about seeing maybe Jacob Fatu start to establish himself as a guy who may be coming for Cody's title.
I think it's too soon for that. Just because Cody's got the WrestleMania business to attend to. And there ain't that much time between now and WrestleMania at this point. Like it's actually, coming up rather quickly. So I'm not sure, if this just means Cody and Solo have a program or if it was just a good way to sort of establish Solo Sikoa's back and not to be trifled with and go at Cody. And of course, Jay is the familial tie. I mean, I get what you're saying. I wouldn't be excited if it's, headlining the next PLE. Yeah, I'm with you there.
No,
But
no.
I do think Cody and has bigger things down the pike real soon. So I don't know if that's necessarily laying the seeds for that. As far as Jacob Fatu, I think they've already built him into a monster, and they kind of just have to wait for all the other stuff to be settled. Because I could see is Jacob Fatu, like let's say Jay wins against Gunther at WrestleMania, gets the title, eventually Fatu being the one to take that title off Jay, and that being his ascension. But those are just things, theories thrown out there. As far as I didn't read too much, I guess I didn't read as much as you are into it being Cody Rhodes the target, as much as Cody Rhodes was in there. Cody Rhodes is the big baby face. Solo's coming back and he attacks the big baby face.
Yeah. Well, I just know I'm like, he's gonna have to get his revenge for that. Like, there's
Yeah.
no way. So we're gonna have to get something from that. I'm like, I think I've seen as many Cody Rhodes Solo Sikoa matches as I want to see in my lifetime. So I'm good with that right now. With that being said, let's go ahead and transition to a match that I definitely do want to see, and that is Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair. So this was something I was so excited about. And it got really, really good. Like it got to a point where I'm going, all right, like this is taking off. And then it was the legs were cut from underneath it, which is fine, I guess, because we still got plenty of time to see more between Charlotte and Tiffany. But basically, what we got here was Charlotte, bragging about herself, right? She's embracing the fans, booing her. And Tiffany Stratton goes out there and she tells her, I came up when I was coming up, everybody was saying, oh, you're going to be the next Charlotte Flair. You're the next Charlotte. Or everybody was constantly comparing her to Charlotte Flair. She was in Charlotte Flair's shadow. And she said, please pick me at WrestleMania so that I can defeat you and that I no longer will be compared to you. I won't be the next Charlotte Flair. I will be the first Tiffany Stratton. And I freaking loved that promo, Robin. I thought she completely brought it. And what I loved even more was how mean and how savage Charlotte Flair was to Tiffany, where she told her, when I spoke to Rhea, I saw a kid. When I speak to you, I see a child. And obviously, belittling a little bit of Tiffany Stratton's personality, right? She comes out in pink and sparkles, and she has a higher pitched voice than Charlotte Flair. So she's going to come across as a lot more youthful for sure. So I think that Charlotte used that and turned it around and, to insult Tiffany Stratton, which I thought was great. But her telling Tiffany, you're going to have to get on your knees and beg me to have a match with you because I am going to make you essentially famous if I work with you. I loved this. I was so into it.
Well, that makes sense, right? Because if you think about it logically, as much as we want to see Charlotte Flair and Tiffany Stratton, because it's going to be a banger, no doubt. And I think if they do have a match, it only makes sense for Tiffany Stratton to win so that she can be made famous in that regard, going over the great Charlotte Flair. But at the same time, from Charlotte Flair's point of view, wouldn't you look at Rhea Ripley and think more, that's my equal, right? Like they had that awesome match at WrestleMania, 2 years ago? I mean, that's what she would be thinking. She should be thinking, well, is Tiffany Stratton. She just got here. You ain't on my level, Barbie doll or whatever you are. So that encompasses probably how her character and how she should be feeling, which is going to make it interesting to see how Tiffany ignites the desire from Charlotte Flair to take her on. Like, because, it's one thing to be condescending about it and say you're not on my level and you're going to have to beg me. Okay, what is it about it that's going to transpire that's going to make Charlotte Flair go, oh, yeah, it's me and you?
Yeah, like what can she do to basically piss her off enough to say that, yeah, fine, we're gonna do this freaking
Yeah.
match? I don't know. I feel like if she just continues to go out there and or people start to maybe point out that Charlotte may be threatened, at some point people are gonna have to call her out and say, you might be threatened of Tiffany Stratton, or Tiffany Stratton herself can say, you're threatened by me.
Mhm.
You're hopefully we see Tiffany Stratton go out and defend the title, get a bunch of wins, and continuously, rub it into Charlotte's place, continuing saying, hey, I'm better than you. I'm accomplishing this, I'm accomplishing that, to the point where Charlotte finally gets fed up and chooses Tiffany Stratton. I feel like that is what's going to happen at some point. And it's funny too, because Tiffany Stratton is still technically a heel, Robin. But in this situation, she felt like the baby face. Everybody was chanting Tiffy time. I love when Charlotte just referred to her as Tiffy instead of Tiffany. All of those little extra touches. I know everyone's always talking shit on Charlotte, but damn it, does Charlotte make a good freaking heel? And that's exactly everything that I wanted from these two girls is what we got in this segment.
Yeah, I mean, you can't make it's impossible to make Charlotte Flair a babyface, I think. And she played off of it really well. I mean, I think, she harnessed that even when she first got in the ring, you're going to boo, whatever, like she harnessed whatever the energy that came from her winning the Royal Rumble was and used it to her advantage like a true pro, like a true legend of the game. And yeah, she nailed it to a T. I thought the segment went well. I thought Nia Jax coming out sets up a pretty good match for a TV show, on a SmackDown between Nia and Tiffy, who haven't really gotten that. They haven't had that, run it back from the cash in, right? So that makes sense to help us get to the build of where we're going. So yeah, I thought it was well executed, and clearly even the fact that they were mentioning the fantasy GMs booking that match before on commentary, I have to believe that's where we're headed to Tiffany Stratton and Charlotte Flair at WrestleMania.
Oh, yes. Like, no, this doesn't feel like that was one of my issues. Like when Jey Uso first came out to like confront Cody today, I'm like, this definitely feels like a filler because we all know he's gonna face Gunther.
Mhm.
Versus this one with Tiffany and Charlotte, it didn't feel like that. It felt like, okay, this is the beginning of this story. This is the beginning, and we're gonna see which road they end up taking, obviously, but or how they end up telling the story rather. So for me, I was so into this. That's why I was so mad when Nia Jax came out. I was like, no, damn it, Nia, get out. I'm enjoying this right now. But she was so funny. She just went out there, poked fun at them, calling them blondies, going back and forth. And this really didn't lead to too much except for Alexa Bliss coming out, and then Candice LeRae had already came out there with Nia Jax. And this then led to the match between Alexa Bliss and Candice LeRae to qualify for the Elimination Chamber. Alexa Bliss, this was her first singles match since January 2023. I can't, every time I hear that, Robin, and I think to myself, holy shit, we're already in 2025. First off, time flies by way too freaking fast. Like in my mind, I'm like, oh yeah, she's been gone for a year. And no, it's been way longer than that. So I was very happy to see Alexa Bliss back. Not only did she get a win, but we did get some Wyatt 6 teases here with the glitching of the screen, as well as her obviously executing the Sister Abigail for the win. What'd you make of this?
Well, I mean, I think her return pop people, and I feel like she's the best chance for the Wyatt Six at this point. We may have discussed this before, but even to the late great Bray Wyatt to a degree, the supernatural characters, I always feel like the build supersedes the payoff. The build is always bigger. It always, like, even with this recent incarnation, all the little clues and the QR codes, and then that entry on Raw where they left everybody bloody and dead in the hallway or whatever it was. And since then, kind of crickets. Um, Alexa Bliss is the best injection of life into that. We'll see if it can work. really the Undertaker is about the only supernatural character that's kind of stood the test of time, I believe. But Alexa Bliss has that look and charisma about her, and hopefully she's the thing they needed to kind of get a fresh start on SmackDown and going forward.
See, you make a good point, and I guess you're like more optimistic than me because my original thought was no, keep her away from that because right now the Wyatt Six, like they're not entertaining right now. Like we're hardly ever seeing them on TV. Like you said, it's crickets. It's not really going anywhere. The execution, I don't think, has been what people anticipated from the group. And so to me, I'm like, keep Alexa Bliss away from that. Like let her do her own thing. Let her find her own, supernatural version, or don't even do the supernatural, just do something with just Alexa. And that's what I was kind of hoping for. And then so that's primarily why I didn't want to see Alexa Bliss back in the group. But then once I saw that they were doing this teases, I'm like, okay, that's where we're going. It is what it is. Oh yeah, the other reason was to me, the female star of the group should have been Nikki Cross, right? Like she's all creepy, she's scary. That should have been, she should have been the forefront in terms of having been the only woman on the group. So I look at that and I didn't want to see Alexa Bliss in the group, but now she definitely is. So you're right. This could be the thing that saves the group.
And maybe she's the face of the. I mean, forget the female star. Maybe she's just the star of
right.
She's the one that's got the most potential in my mind.
I feel you. All right. You're changing my mind on this, Robin. I wasn't in love with the idea, but I'm willing to change. All right, we got Stephen Marchulli here who says Charlotte versus Tiffany. Take my money. Who wins? I really hope that it's Tiffany. I've been screaming at the top of my lungs. Tiffany needs to defeat Charlotte. I don't want to see the same thing play out that happened with Charlotte and Rhea. Let's tell a different story. Let's shock people and have Tiffany Stratton win.
Yeah, I mean, I said the same thing. I think it does a lot more for Tiffany Stratton than it does for Charlotte Flair. The only way I could see it playing out otherwise is if they did like 3, and Charlotte wins the first one, and then Tiffany wins 2 and 3 to get to conquer that queen, if you will. That's the way I would buy it with a Charlotte Flair win, and people will be pissed off and upset, and then you could play off of that, people being pissed off and upset and invested in Tiffany Stratton. So if Charlotte Flair wins, I hope that's the direction they're going. The worst possible outcome is Charlotte Flair wins, and then we just move on from this. Charlotte Flair continues with her
They
title
circle
reign.
back to it 3 years later.
Yeah, that I don't think would work. So I either think, and I would hope Tiffany wins. I mean, and I think it'll be a great match, and that's my number one outcome. But I could at least see the idea of Charlotte winning and then Tiffany having to conquer that back.
We got Anthony Giuliano here who says, hey, Denise, did you notice Pretty Deadly called the SmackDown Tag Team Champion NXT Tag Team Champion? What's up, Robin? Hope you're doing good. I did not notice that. However, I'm not surprised, though, because Pretty Deadly did spend a lot of time on NXT. So maybe they was just thinking it. But no, I didn't notice that. Good catch. We got Hound Justice CR7 who says Blair Davenport was released alongside 4 more people. They could have put her back in NXT, but releasing her seems unfair. Yeah, so just in case you guys missed it, we did cover this at the top of the stream, but just to add to this, it sucks because, like I said, when you don't get a chance to show something, it's like you can't, if you're Blair Davenport and you got released, you can't be like, oh, well, maybe if I did this differently or if I did that differently. You can't even think like that because you didn't even get a chance to even show anything, right? And I feel like the reason they didn't send her back to NXT is because NXT already has so many girls there. So they probably felt like, oh, she's not necessarily needed there because of how many women they already have. But I feel like Blair, definitely there was a spot for her on the main roster because we were, how many times don't we see a lot of the same people in the same matches over and over? And Blair would definitely be somebody, even if you're not planning on telling a big story for her, even if you're not planning a journey for her like you would Tiffany Stratton or, Jade Cargill or whoever is on top, she can still be somebody in there that you can rely on to like have good matches and just, be a body, be somebody to like have wrestling matches with. That's why part of me is like, yeah, I do think that they could have definitely found a place for Blair. And I felt bad because when I saw that she had been released, my initial thought was, wait, didn't she get called up? And I wasn't even that sure about it because because we didn't get to see her that often. And I remember thinking, yeah, she got called up. Oh yeah. But I had to double check just to make sure that I was right about that. Which should kind of tell you, how little they actually did with her on the main roster.
Well, I mean, to be blunt, nobody who got released is somebody that they valued to a high degree, right? But oftentimes in these situations, you can be collateral damage as well, where the parent company, you know, cuts salary in order to show the shareholders that they're meeting budgets. So that's one thing. And then it's the timing of contracts and the like. So they'll either look at the dollar amount somebody's making and saying we're paying too much for this person relative to what they're doing. And that's an easy cut for us. But a lot of times it's also, I think it was reported with Sonya Deville's contract, right? Like her contract was up. So I promise you, if we look at these people that were released, one thing that is in common is that they weren't really a big part of the plans. But the other thing that is in common is they either had expiring contracts that were coming to an end or some sort of quirk in what was going on there that the people that were looking at it looked at them and identified them based on that, as well as the fact that they weren't on the marquee for WrestleMania.
No, you do really make a good point there because sometimes it's just out of your control. It really is. It could be a myriad of things in terms of, I know sometimes we were talking about like, oh, why was this person released? Why was that person released? I feel like just based off of like people that I've interviewed in the past that have been released, everybody has a different story. Everybody heard a different reason. Of course, we as fans can make up our not make up, but assume certain things. But at the end of the day, again, everyone's journey is just different, and we'll see what happens. But thank you so much, Hound Justice. We got Sean Latham here who says Alexa versus Tiffany SummerSlam build starts now. I mean, they didn't really interact, but I do think that Alexa would be a fun story for Tiffany Stratton. With definitely Tiffany Stratton, going on top. I think. I just feel I want to see Tiffany be booked very strongly because I really do believe that she is going to be that next big mega superstar for the women. She's making her way there. So, but yeah, Alexa versus Tiffany Stratton is going to be fun to see. But there's a lot of new people that I can't wait to see Alexa sort of mix it up with, or just people that she can resurface with certain feuds.
Well, SummerSlam's a ways away, so I'm not sure, who's going to be in what position at that point, not till August. But I mean, I do think if Alexa Bliss is going to be off TV for that long, and then you're going to bring her back in the Rumble, and then you're going to throw her into the group and likely have her be at the forefront of the group, she seems set for a push right now. And we're going to see. We're going to see if she's built for that status and if it's going to work. And look, if it gets hot enough, maybe she's the one to beat Tiffany Stratton, right? Like, I mean, and then Tiffany's got to try and chase it back. I mean, there's a lot of different ways you can go. I feel like I don't feel like Tiffany needs to be dominant per se. I feel like she's already accomplished so much in becoming a superstar and winning the championship. I just don't want to see her be just, fodder for somebody like Charlotte Flair, fed to Charlotte Flair, and it didn't mean anything. Whatever happens with her, I just want it to mean something.
Yeah, don't discard her. Like you've got something there. When you got something that's new, you just got to roll with it, we got, thank you so much, Sean. We got Terrence Johnson here who says the Duke Hudson release was a Triple H call. I see. Yeah, that happened a couple days ago as well. Again, another one that I wasn't surprised by. They tried a couple of things with Duke and they just didn't, they didn't really work out. And he was part of Chase U, but again, that was like more of the entire group, like the Chase U people, like they had a lot of fans that watched NXT and enjoyed them. But I think as an individual, it took a second. It really, really did take a second. And even then, I don't know. But I also think that Duke Hudson was another guy. Again, given how slim that roster is, like you could still use them for, some wins or something or whatever. But it is what it is, man. We got Anthony Giuliano here who says, you think Carmelo Hayes will get released soon because he was supposed to be the number one draft pick going nowhere and just a mid-card guy. So one thing, I do not ever want to speculate on anybody getting released. That's one thing. Two, Carmelo Hayes, yes, he was the number 1 draft pick, but I don't see him as not going anywhere. I know he hasn't been presented as like a main roster guy, but I don't think that doesn't mean that there isn't a place for him on the show, or that doesn't mean that he can't become a main top guy. Carmelo Hayes is very, very talented as a wrestler. And think about how good the matches were with him and Andrade, to the point that they had to run those back 7 times. So I do think that sometimes people, I don't know what it is, but I feel like Carmelo Hayes is going out there and he's doing the job and he's trying to make it work. Like he really is. Like even today when that match with Akira Tozawa isn't the most like, hottest opponent for someone to face. Akira Tozawa is seen at a certain spot on the roster. Right. Okay. I do like what they're having Carmelo Hayes do, though, where like he comes out there, he talks his shit on the microphone. He then goes in there and he probably had the best match I've seen with Akira Tozawa in a really long time. So, of course, I don't want to see him wrestle Akira Tozawa every week, but I definitely do think that Carmelo Hayes will eventually find his footing on the main roster.
Well, I mean, I think that was Carmelo Hayes hasn't won in a while. Let's call Akira Tozawa to SmackDown. Like that was
Poor
kind of
Tozawa. Poor Tozawa.
well, I mean, he embraced it, right? He even embraced what happened to him at the Royal Rumble. So,
I mean, I think Tozawa knows what kind of spot he's in the
yeah,
company,
he make
and
the
he's making it
most
work.
of
He's
it. Yeah,
making it work. He's entertaining. You may not take him seriously, but at least he's getting the job done.
yeah, exactly. And look, Carmelo Hayes is not. First of all, on the release point, these things tend to happen in waves, like layoffs do in the corporate world. So I don't expect, I think every time we've talked about it, at least it's been the same sort of story. It's like a group, and then a few months later, it's a group, whatever the case. It's not like,
I think this is the second time that you and I have had to talk about releases on the show, and we haven't even been doing the show for a year yet.
yeah. So, but that's, I mean, that's kind of the nature of, I don't know. I don't know how many different times I went through it. Either surviving or not surviving, but hearing, oh, it's the layoff day, and then so that's kind of the way it works in the corporate world. But as far as Carmelo Hayes goes, you got to remember he's also not like Braun Breaker or Jacob Fatu. Like you can't be a Braun Breaker or a Jacob Fatu and come in and eat pins. It takes away your aura. It takes away your mystique. It's like, why is this big badass guy getting his ass beat? Carmelo Hayes is not built like that. He has the luxury, in a way, of being able to build it and earn it over time. I think the only thing that's a bit of a drawback is where he was drafted. But again, where he was drafted should be a signal that is what he was thought of when the draft happened. So has he done anything to lower his standing? I mean, I think he flubbed one promo against LA Knight, but other than that, like he hasn't really done anything to lower his standing. And I think he's starting to do some of his better work of late. So I wouldn't judge him so quickly because I think he has a broad brush to paint with here. A large canvas, I guess, is a better analogy to work with here. And we will see the best of Carmelo Hayes, maybe not at WrestleMania, obviously, maybe not even at SummerSlam, but maybe next year's season, that kind of thing. He's got the time to build a little bit.
I think so too. I really, really do think so too. All right. So with that being said, let's go ahead and hop into the next segment that I actually want to get into is the Drew McIntyre Jimmy Uso bit, because I thought that was actually really hilarious. Man, Drew McIntyre. So he's officially a SmackDown superstar, by the way. But the big thing that really happened here was Drew McIntyre roasting the hell out of Jimmy Uso. He was like, you look exactly like Jay. You guys talk the same. You act the same. You wrestle the same. The only thing that you messed up in was you didn't say yeet first. Oh man, I was dying with that. We did have LA Knight go out there, and then this led into the triple threat match for the Elimination Chamber spot, and Drew McIntyre, of course, won that, and now is in the chamber alongside John Cena and CM Punk with 3 more spots left to be filled.
My favorite segment of the show.
It was so good.
Yeah,
so
my,
good.
My favorite segment of the show. I thought Drew was great. I thought Jimmy was great. The line that you quoted obviously was hilarious and maybe partially true. But did you catch what LA Knight said too?
Which part?
When he came out and said
Oh,
Right
yes,
before he did he said, "I
the
had to get my
mental health
stuff off."
thing?
No, no, he said I had
Mm.
to get my stuff off or whatever. You remember when Drew McIntyre
Oh!
was thrown out of the
Oh,
Rumble and all the
yes!
reports were
I
that Drew
assumed it was Logan Paul that they had been talking about. I wasn't sure if it was LA Knight. So it must have been LA Knight and Logan Paul. So that kind of confirms that it was LA Knight. No, I didn't catch that.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, after the Rumble, when Drew was thrown out, the reports were that he was pissed off at somebody because they wanted to get all their moves off or whatever and screwed up however it was supposed to go down. And LA Knight made a mention of that in the walkout. Not only did he do like the actual like break of character to Cam and said it's okay for men to cry, but you can't be Drew McIntyre who cries all the time. But he did say, wait, I forgot, I got to get my stuff off, and then goes, yeah, like and before he got in there. So I think between
Subtle. I didn't catch that. No, you're so right.
between that and the Drew Barb to Jimmy, and then the way the match played out with the right victor, I think that was my favorite segment of the show.
It was so freaking good. And like I do feel like that's the thing though. When Jimmy Uso came out, I do kind of feel bad for him though, because the difference between him and Jay, I mean, dude, Jay's up here and Jimmy just feels like a little bit lower on the totem pole, which sucks because it's like you're twins, you're brothers, you guys were a unit, and one guy is just like soaring. And I kind of feel bad. I really do. And so now like Jimmy has to find something that makes him uniquely stand out, right? Like I feel like at this point, like I'm even more interested in Solo Sikoa. This
Mm.
is wild. I can't even believe I said that.
Yeah, but I feel like he's doing a good job on the mic. I like the big Jim thing. I think he's carrying himself all right. We'll see where it goes. He could be Tamatonga.
Oh, that's true. I was gonna say that's true.
Right? There,
Poor
there are worse
Tamatonga.
spots in life.
I don't know, but I just feel like he needs to find something that makes him feel different from Jay. Because, like, even when he was yeeting, even though he's yeeted so much, like, he was yeeting too. I'm like, nah, that's Jay's thing.
Yeah, yeah. No,
Like, that's his.
I mean, yeah,
So,
no, that's become its own thing too, right? Like, but yeah,
yeah,
I mean, that's why the Drew McIntyre words rang so true, because of how synonymous that's become with Jay, and it's look, with so many of the great tag teams, one of the tag wrestlers goes on to this great solo success, and the other one is Marty Jannetty, and I do think Jimmy though, to his credit, like in his music hits, there's still a reaction. When he gets on the mic, you're still listening to what he's saying. So you are correct. There's a huge gap, a chasm maybe between Jay and Jimmy, but I also don't see Jimmy as like down here. So there's stuff to work with. He'll probably never get up there again. Maybe he has a program where he and Jay reunite, for a run and for whatever the circumstances are. But I don't pity him because I don't feel like he's presented as a bum either.
right, right. I get you. I get you. All right. We got a super chat here. From Kid Cudi. Thank you so much to Kid Cudi, who says Carmelo wrestles mostly main eventers. His character is cocky. First pick who's trying to prove he was worth it. People have to look at placement on the card instead of wins and losses all the time. Yeah, it was funny because when this conversation started about like, I feel like and maybe this is obviously for everybody where the spotlight can be very hard, right? Where people are because we're watching the product, we're reacting to what the wrestlers are doing. We have certain expectations of certain people. And with Carmelo Hayes, when I was seeing so many people critique him, I remember thinking, like, did he even really like mess up? The only thing, like you mentioned, was the LA Knight promo. It was the one mess up of that promo. But other than that, he's been doing fine. I think the only thing that's different with Carmelo from everybody else is that he doesn't have, this yeah chant thing going. Like there's nothing people are chanting with Carmelo. Like nothing has gotten over yet, but that doesn't mean he's failing though.
Yeah, and remember, now these guys became much more beloved with the fans, and Carmelo has a long way to get there. But how many losses did Jey Uso have
Oh
before he
man, like a
won the
million.
Rumble? How many losses did Sami Zayn have before he beat Gunther last year at WrestleMania? Right, like so guys like that. It's just about I think finding that whatever it is, that whether it's a feud, whether it's a catchphrase, whether it's a performance that kind of goes, oh shit, this is Carmelo Hayes, he's legit. I think he's conducting himself well, carrying himself well, and like Kid Cudi says there, they're not treating him. He's losing matches, but he's not. It's not like, oh, here comes Carmelo. He's being presented as somebody who belongs in the ring with some of the best.
One of the other things that sort of signifies to me that they see Carmelo a certain way, and this may mean something, this may not mean something, I don't know, but they always send him out to do media. He's one of the guys who's always there doing media. I've at least seen him twice already at these events, and maybe 3 times. I'm lying, 3 times, maybe even more. Who knows? But the fact that they're always sending him out, to me, that's a good sign, right?
Yeah, I mean, unless he's the next in line to be the Miz, right? Like that's otherwise yeah, that they think you're a good spokesman. You have the right kind of charisma and personality and represent the brand well. So yeah, that's certainly a good thing.
Thank you so much, Kid Cudi. We have Anthony Giuliano who says, Denise, you ready for the meat match? We have Strowman, Fatu, and Priest. Can't wait to see these big men. Dude, when they made that announcement backstage, I was like, wait a minute. Did I hear that right? We're going to have these 3 guys in a qualifiers match together. Oh, I'm so looking forward to that for next week. So looking forward to that. I'm thinking, I don't know who's going to win that. I would ideally like it to be Fatu. But I do think all of these guys kind of have if it's not Fatu, I do think it would be Damian Priest though to win.
Yeah, I think what happened with Damian Priest and Drew McIntyre may have been some seeds, so maybe we see that continued at the Elimination Chamber. So I actually would probably pick Damian Priest in this match because I would say maybe Fatu and Strowman continue their beef, and that allows Damian Priest to get the win.
I think so too. I think you're right on that one. Anthony Giuliano, thank you so much for the super chat. All right, let me just sort of go through some of the smaller talking bits that we haven't circled on here for the show because we basically covered all of the big segments already. Bianca Belair, speaking of the Elimination Chamber, she is qualified. She defeated Piper Niven, so she's in already. I thought that was great. I mean, how do you not have Bianca Belair in it? We also had Pretty Deadly defeat DIY. And it's fine. I don't know if you have anything else to add to that, Robin. It is what it is.
I like Pretty Deadly. I've said that. So there you go.
Yeah, you're like, that's pretty much all there is to add to that. And speaking of Carmelo Hayes, we already said he defeated Akira Tozawa. That was the other bit of what we got there. And I think we actually might have covered everything already. We did. Now that I ran through the entire list, we did it. That was SmackDown, everyone. Wow, another fun show. As always, Robin, thank you so much for doing this with me each and every single week. To everybody here watching, please do not forget to subscribe to the channel. If you enjoyed this podcast review, I'm live constantly. Robin and I are here on Fridays talking SmackDown. All of that. Subscribe to the channel. I'm so close to 200K. I'm like 420 something away. So I can feel it already. But Robin, what do you got going up? Oh, sorry. We got one more super chat. This is from Anthony who says that Street Profits segment was fire. I don't even remember what happened with that.
They did, I think, it's like a vignette kind of thing.
Yeah. Yes. I do remember that. It was just kind of a vignette there. Robin, what do you got going on?
You check me out over on the Robin Lundberg Show on YouTube. I also run Women's Fast Break on SI covering women's basketball. Obviously, you can catch me here with Denise and check out Raj's, my son's YouTube channel, Raj-Talk. Stated goal of getting more subscribers than his dad.
I love that. Alrighty, guys, that's it for us here today. Have an awesome weekend. Enjoy the Super Bowl, and I will be back here on Monday for the Raw watch along. Bye, everyone.
Yeet.